You're gonna hear people say that San Francisco is back. And then you're gonna hear other people say San Francisco's dead. What's happening in 2026? It's the AI reset. We aren't just looking at regular seasonal real estate markets anymore. We're seeing AI multimillionaires create a more competitive environment for the San Francisco market in 2026 compared to 2025. And this is a frenzy that I haven't seen since 2021 to the maybe mid 2022 when interest rates went up drastically compared to what they were the past few years. They were still lower than what they are now, but this AI frenzy is creating appreciation, shorter days on market. We're gonna dip into micro markets, however. In this video, I'm gonna go over what happened in 2025, our 2026 prediction, where pricing and competition will go based on the asset type if interest rates hover around the 6% range, and what buyers and sellers need to do next to win in a market that's still divided by neighborhood and property type. If you're new here, I'm Katie Pratt. I'm a realtor in the Bay Area. I help buyers and sellers decide what to do next. I'm excited to present market data from 2026 and 2025 in San Francisco and dive more deeply into micro markets for property types and neighborhoods. So first off, how did we get here? What happened in 2025 in San Francisco? I can tell you anecdotally, in the beginning of last year, it seemed that a lot of folks were more hesitant to make moves. They didn't know what was going to happen after the election. They didn't know what the impact of the change in leadership would be. And a big factor was that interest rates for conventional loans were higher than what they are now. So both sellers and buyers held back on some decision making. Inventory was tight, and it's still tight in San Francisco in 2026. In December 2025, California Association of Realtors showed that San Francisco County had 0.8 months of supply compared to 1.5 months of supply the year prior. And more specifically, when it came to the residential multifamily space and also the mixed-use multifamily space in San Francisco, it seemed like there were a lot more deals to be had. For example, you could find a 3-unit, almost vacant property in Upper Market area for under 1.1 million. I've since seen those units turned into tenancy in commons and sold off individually for the price at which the entire building was purchased. It also seemed like in Mission Guerrero, there were a couple of triplexes and duplexes that had either 2 of 3 vacant units or a completely vacant building that would go under list price. So listed at 1.5, reduced to 1.295, and then ultimately sold for under asking. And this type of buyer environment didn't last the entire scope of 2025. I will say it seemed like the climate changed as soon as interest rates hit sub 6%. Also, when there's some seasonality, lower activity due to summer vacation and families with kids having those kids go back to school, buyer activity slows down, so there's less competition, but had a buyer who was able to secure a duplex in Noe Valley for under 1.3 million, no competition. In 2025, prices were not telling a single story. Again, I just named off some asset types that aren't on everyone's radar. I think they are more so now just because of the lack of inventory and the limit of single family homes that exist in some of these more competitive neighborhoods. It seemed like in September, October, November, and this was probably correlated to interest rates and some of the news we saw about AI and the stock market, but there was a lot more competitiveness for those same properties and single family homes. Buyer activity and number of offers per property dramatically increased, and I'll support that with data here. For example, the California Association of Realtors showed the median price comparing December 2025 to December 2024. So it was up 10.97% to 1.697. So what are our predictions for 2026 based on data now, nearly the first 3 months of 2026 to the first 3 months of 2025? Has buyer demand continued from late 2025 into 2026? When we look at interest rates, how has that played into buyer psychology? In the beginning of 2026, we're 6.85% compared to now 6.08%. And that temporary drop we saw at the end of last year in 2025 definitely served as a catalyst for more people, more buyers moving into the market. What do I think will continue to happen in 2026? Well, there's been other curveballs that are a factor in at least goods inflation in the United States because of the cost of gasoline. So it's quite possible that the Fed won't lower interest rates, hopefully won't raise them. If rates hover around 6%, then I would expect to see the same competitiveness that we've seen so far in 2026. And just again, to compare stats from January to March 2026 to January to March 2025, in San Francisco, the single family detached homes, prices surged anywhere from 16% to 23%, depending on the pocket of San Francisco. And for condominiums, townhomes, tenancies in common, prices went up 37%, again, depending on the pocket. One piece of anecdotal evidence before breaking down zip codes, neighborhoods, and price changes year over year, there was one home in the inner Sunset that had 34 offers. This was not something that I saw last year. So if interest rates remain sub 6 or around the 6% range, then I expect buyer demand to remain consistent. The real question is, will sellers, outside of forced reasons or special circumstance reasons, choose to list if they have the luxury of time? So will there be enough inventory to make a truly balanced market? And so so far this proves not to be true. Year over year, comparing the same time periods to 2025, inventory is down 30 to 40% for single-family detached homes. So with the decline in inventory for single-family homes, I expect there to be even more demand for the boutique townhomes, TICs, condos. Next question, what happens to prices in 2026? Again, depends on asset type, depends on neighborhood. We're gonna compare more granular data, but here's what the big names on consumer-facing sites have to say. Redfin, for example, the median sale price was up to 1.3 million, and that's up 2.8% year over year. Zillow shows the average home value in San Francisco to be 1.258 million, which is only up 3.1% year over year. Actually, let me go into more granular data first for San Francisco. Inventory, according to this data, is already down year over year, but we see a change in inventory not driven by life events. I mean, that requires a deeper dive into the demographics of who actually is selling right now in San Francisco. Or perhaps there are unrealistic sellers who know about the AI boom and have priced their property too highly. So in San Francisco, for detached single-family homes, the median sold price jumped to 1.86 million between January and mid-March of 2026. Average time on market is 11 days from list publicly to being in contract. With condos, again, boutique rebound. So the median days on market this year compared to last year was 27 versus now 17. That's closer to the single-family detached home median days on market. And I think, again, the limited inventory for single-family homes is pushing more interest in these tenancy in common and boutique buildings. So even when lumped together with condos and bigger buildings, the median sold price is up 13.5% to 1.19 million for all of San Francisco. We're seeing renewed interest in neighborhoods like Nob Hill and Telegraph Hill as workers return to the office. So enter Sunset and Golden Gate Heights. This is ground zero for competition, and it's probably because of the median list price in this area. This is my anecdote for the 34 offer situation, and I'll put that here so you can see it on Redfin. 73% of homes in this area sold for 10% over list price, which is still lower than what we were seeing in 2021, 2022 for a percentage over asking in San Francisco for detached homes. In Excelsior Outer Mission, this is where we're seeing the most volume. We actually had volume or inventory increase in this neighborhood versus other parts of San Francisco. However, the median sold price this year compared to last year went up from 1.2 million to 1.4 million. And cash share dropped here, which if you're buying a home with financing, this is good news for you. It could also just mean that there were fewer fixer-uppers or less inventory that required or did not qualify for conventional financing. Castro, Noe Valley, this is where there's a lot of cash competition. Cash offers are 50% of the offer type, or have been in the last 3 months in 2026. And the median sold price in the time period for 2026 has been 3.3 million. In Soma South Beach, you have a high percentage of high-rise HOAs. They're underwriting the HOAs and they're purchasing more conservatively, especially in the high-rise buildings where you'd expect HOA fees, monthly fees to be higher, required reserves for the building to be higher because of building maintenance. Even here, rents are up 11% year over year. In conclusion, we're seeing the highest percentage of overbidding since 2022 when interest rates were still sub 4%, before interest rates jumped from the mid threes to the mid fives. And San Francisco is the only county in the Bay Area we're seeing a decline in the percentage of price reductions. Even with some of the layoffs or rumors of layoffs with some of these tech companies, for every 40% that are laid off, there are 60% that are more wealthy. So unless there is a huge surge in inventory to match buyer demand, A-tier properties will continue to command record prices. If interest rates do go up, some of these areas where single-family detached homes are competing with fewer cash offers will be the areas that buyers using conventional financing should target. Otherwise, in areas like Noe Valley, the Castro, Pacific Heights, the higher price point neighborhoods, you'll be competing with all cash offers. I don't think there will be a dramatic crash or a rocket ship year, but I do think that demand will remain steady throughout 2026 in San Francisco proper. I'm just gonna go over some highlights from 2025, 2026. For detached single-family homes, the highest sold priced home in 2025 was 18.1 million, and that was in Seacliff. It actually sold 10% under list price. In 2026, the max sold price in the Marina Cow Hollow area was 14.5 million. And the 2025 best discount was 3983 19th Street, and that was on the Castro-Noe border. It sold for 1.29 million, originally listed for 1.699 million. Of course, it was purchased with cash. The 2026 best discount, again, not lowest price, but best discount, was Twin Peaks Diamond Heights area. This was 210 Laidley Street. It sold for 4.55 million, but was originally listed for 6 million. It was on the market for 358 days, so there's a story here. So buyer rule number one, pick your lane first. Are you gonna go after detached single-family homes, tenancies in common that are multifamily but still considered residential, a rare product? Then pick a neighborhood cluster, and then pick the micro market based on the data that we could provide you with. Buyer rule number 2, don't let the median price trick you. Sunset is one example. The median sold price is down compared to 2025, but days on market is 2 days shorter than it was last year. Most of them sell for 10% over listings. Buyer rule number 3, if you want a deal, you need a deal thesis. What's a deal to you? A deal thesis, how are you going to fight a deal? Has something been on the market for a long time? Is there a challenge of an unpermitted unit, an abatement from the city of San Francisco, of which you have to work through and have abated? Otherwise, is the condition of the property good enough that an investor might not want it, but bad enough that most retail buyers overlook it? Is there building or HOA friction? Does the building need a lot of work and needs a special assessment that you're willing to pay? And again, if you're financed, your superpower is having a clean offer. You can do due diligence beforehand and your non-contingent offer will look competitive to a cash offer. Also, your ability to close very quickly and be pre-underwritten before making an offer. And of course, my note about non-contingent offers, doing your due diligence before, that means don't panic buy because you know you're in a competitive situation. Set your comfort zone and your expenses well before making an offer. And of course, if you're using a conventional loan or a jumbo loan, any loan product, make sure that you're not setting an affordability strategy based on rates magically dropping below a certain number. Those rates are better than last year, but with recent world events, we don't know where they're going. There are strategies and mortgage programs. When you do have more negotiating power, you can have rate buy downs credited from the seller, which would give you temporary relief. So underwrite your purchase with today's rate reality, because if rates dip, remember that you're going to have more competition. More buyers who have been standing on the sidelines will jump into the market. What sellers need to know in 2026 and in general, I might add. So rule number 1 in 2026, pricing is a marketing strategy. Price right, you're more likely to sell your home in the time frame of the median days on market in San Francisco, 13 days. Watch the rate window. There was a huge move or seemingly change in activity at the end of last year when rates fell below 6%. It served as a catalyst for a lot of buyers to jump in the market. If you have some flexibility in timing, demand can change. Your pricing strategy can also change based on those rate fluctuations. And seller rule number 2, know that you are not competing with buyers, you are competing with other listings. These A-tier listings and maybe the often overlooked neighborhoods are going to get more attention in a time period that's closer to San Francisco's median days on market than a B-class listing that isn't a major fixer-upper but needs enough work that buyers can't use their imaginations. That has to do with the fact that a lot of buyers, they can't imagine a space. They can't visualize a space without those. And seller rule number 3, make sure you have all the due diligence up front when it comes to your HOA's building story. For condos, townhomes especially. For bigger buildings, your locus of control is limited, but disclose. Set your expectations. If there are many units that are also available in your building, make your unit stand out by having basic improvements, presentable photos, staging, real staging, because buyers spend on average 30 minutes longer in a house that's staged than they do one that's not. I'm Katie Pratt with Living in the Bay Area. We help buyers and sellers transition all over the Bay. If you want me to share data for your exact neighborhood or zip code or micro market, click on the link below. I'm happy to set up a Zoom call or send you valuations for your area. And if you're buying or selling this year, click on the link below for a Zoom strategy call. We'll help you navigate the market in 2026.